What are some causes of verbal abuse, or why are some folks um, doing or allowing themselves to be mentally or emotionally abusive to others? Sometimes they're acting based on their past experiences, the things that they have experienced, and they have not totally healed from that. They sometimes also it's like it's a cultural thing, and I don't really want to say culture, probably more tied to family. It depends on how they were grown up, how they were how they grew up. Um, their belief, things that they believe, and the things that they believe can sometimes can be gender wise. In some cases, they believe that women should be silent, and in other cases, there are so many reasons sometimes why folks can become that way, you know. But I know a lot of times the experiences they've had and the pain that they still deal with has a lot to do with the reason why they're that way. And let's not forget that mental health, it's real. There's a lot of mental issues, mental illnesses. And mental illness is not something you judge someone for or you tear them down for it. But if you do care about the person, you would encourage them to get help or try to help them. If you cannot, I mean, come on, if you're not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, someone who deals with mental health issues, you can recommend them. I'll find a way to get that fact across to them. And mental illness, that's one of the reasons why folks behave that way. Sometimes it's not anything to do with that. Some people are just experiencing some bad stuff and they just bring it over in their future, So yeah, that's some of the reasons why we have those folks who continue to hurl mean words, insults, and on folks, and that leave real emotional, invisible scars. Research has shown in several platforms that emotional abuse, or some call it verbal abuse, it's one of those abuse that goes undetected for a long time. It is the hardest to detect, but it can be one of the most detrimental ones. You don't see it. You can't see it with your natural eyes. It is done to someone's emotion, and it is done to their it's done to their emotion, done to them emotionally. Sorry, and it's done to them mentally. But it is very hard to detect, and sometimes, like I said before, it continues and it turns into something else. After a while, having seen people having symptoms of different illnesses because there are internal scars that they're dealing with that they are not healed from. Okay, so how do you deal with someone who's in your life who is verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, some would say, and you have to deal with them. How do you deal with people like those and not lose it? Because for me, it's important not to lose it. I've been in situations in my life before where I think I could have handled it a little better than that. Sometimes I don't necessarily shout, but words, when coined a certain way, can be painful. And even though they're that way, even though the verbal abuser is that way, sometimes they are under other controls that they don't know about. Sometimes they are deliberately doing it, they don't care, and they keep doing it. And over the years, no one cautioned them, no one tried to help them to be better, to do better. Sometimes is when they get older, they realize that they're not doing the right thing or they have made mistakes. So, how do you deal with someone who is verbally abusive? Let's talk about that. So, one way to deal with someone who's verbally abusive, you got to find a way to draw the line. You got to find a way to Determine your boundaries. What will you allow them to step over and do? When do you draw the line? And how do you draw the line? So you need personal boundaries. You need personal boundaries. And it is difficult sometimes to get your personal boundary when it comes on to a marriage or a relationship. It may be easier when you're dealing with others that you don't have to go home to. But you have to draw that line and that boundary and understand what is best for you. So first of all, find a way to draw that line. That's how far I'm willing to allow someone to step over and say anything that they want to say to me. Don't think I'm asking you to confront them. Mm-mm, that's not a solution. But in your mental states, you have to make up in your mind and decide what words will you allow to filter through whatever they say to get into your heart, your mind, or your spirit. If you can find a way to draw that line, draw that boundary mentally, mental block, that will determine what you accept to go in your mind, in your spirit, what you agree with, what you believe. Believe. If you can find a way to draw that line, that's a good way to go. That's one way to go. Another way to deal with someone who's verbally abusive, if that person have a tendency to scream or raise their voice, find a way not to return that behavior. Find a way to remain calm. It's very hard to remain calm when someone's voice is going up. But you raising your voice at them, they raising their voice at you. Baby, recipe for disaster. Find a way to remain calm. If you can, remain silent, wait, wait, breathe. That's another way to deal with someone, especially those screamers. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Things I find with folks who are verbally abusive, they tend to say things to pull you out. So they'll say something and you'll have you're like, where do I what which of the remarks do I answer? Okay, let me try to say this the best way I possibly can. What do I respond to? Is it are they asking about that, or it sounds like they're asking about 10 questions in one, or it sounds like they're making some statements and you're trying to justify yourself. Mm-mm. Forget that one. Don't try to justify nothing you just did. Don't try to explain to them that. Don't try to explain it. Mm-mm. Uh-uh. Don't do it. There comes a point, and folks will say, "You seem like you don't care." No, there comes a point when it comes on to your mental health, your emotional health, you've got to know that in some cases you just don't explain. Mm-mm. In some cases, honey, don't explain nothing. Don't explain. When you are comfortable, or when if you think the need is there to explain, but in that moment, and sometimes just let it slide, they're gonna keep doing. They're gonna keep saying something to harm you or to hurt you. And if you allow them to, if you don't have that filter to filter the things they say, that line that you draw that I spoke about earlier, you're going to be led to be pulled into what they're saying and be explaining yourself every minute. That's that's crazy. That's crazy. Why would you want to be with someone or around someone who you constantly need to explain everything? That's draining. Let me say finally, if you feel that it is hard for you to deal with a relationship that's emotionally abusive, if you feel that your life is at threat or in danger, please do not take it on your own. There are so many different organizations that deal with this. And if you need to run to someone in the church and to talk to someone in confidence, if you need to get help, there are so many different entities, so many different places that you can get help. But if it comes to a point where it becomes you feel like you're being threatened, you're in fear or stuff like that, don't sit there with it by yourself, and neither should you in your own self confront that person, because sometimes you're dealing with a health issue, and sometimes it can turn into violence. It can turn into physical abuse. Okay. So if you feel that you are in a relationship, like a emotion, like what would I say, a romantic relationship or marriage, and you have to deal with someone who is emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, verbally abusive, um, you have to find the best route to get help and stay alive. That's important. That's important. Don't go confronting them. That may not turn out very well. All right. So please remember to share my video, subscribe to my channel. Again, I'm Shalit Golden, otherwise called Deborah. Tell me some other ways that you can identify someone who is verbally abusive, and go ahead and share that. God bless you. I love you. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.